For decades, it was a war fought in the shadows, a hidden conflict of spies, cyber attacks, and simmering proxy battles. Then, for 12 days, in June of 2025, the shadows simply vanished. The long-running conflict between Iran and Israel exploded into open warfare, dragging the entire Middle East to the very brink of a catastrophe. This wasn't a proxy war anymore. This was direct. It was devastating. And it completely changed the balance of power in just a matter of days. So what was the final push that caused this shadow war to finally boil over? For years, the two nations were locked in this back and forth of covert hostilities. But the real trigger for this full-scale war was intelligence suggesting Iran had fired up its nuclear weapons program again. Israel, believing it had a very narrow window to act after degrading Iran's air defenses in earlier skirmishes, decided it was now or never. It launched a massive, preemptive military strike, aiming to neutralize what it saw as a threat to its very existence before it was too late. The goal wasn't just to hit them. It was to dismantle the very core of Iran's military and nuclear ambitions. The Israeli offensive was incredibly swift and overwhelming. The first wave of attacks went straight for the heart of Iran's nuclear program. But it didn't stop there. The Israeli Air Force also hit targets that were crucial to the Iranian regime's grip on its own people. We're talking about the headquarters of the Basij, a powerful paramilitary force, and even facilities at the notorious Evin prison in Tehran, a symbol of the regime's iron fist. At the same time, they took out state media buildings in a clear attempt to cripple the government's ability to control the narrative and crush dissent. The message couldn't have been clearer. This was an attack on the regime itself. Iran's response was furious. It unleashed a storm of ballistic missiles, targeting cities and military sites all across Israel. Dozens of people were killed, and hundreds were wounded as the nation's air defense systems were pushed to their absolute limit. But the most dangerous move came when Iran decided to widen its aim. In an escalation that risked dragging global powers into the fight, Iran launched 14 ballistic missiles at the Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, a major hub for the United States military. Even though the missiles were mostly intercepted with little damage, the attack sent shockwaves through the region and all the way to Washington. The world just held its breath, waiting to see what the U.S. would do next. The American response was decisive, and it was destructive. The U.S. jumped into the conflict directly, not just to defend, but with overwhelming offensive force. American forces carried out massive airstrikes on Iran's most critical nuclear facilities. Using powerful bunker-buster bombs, the U.S. military hit the deeply buried sites at Fordo and Natanz, along with another facility in Esfahan. The mission: the complete and total obliteration of Iran's nuclear capabilities, U.S. and UAS. Israeli officials later confirmed the strikes caused extreme damage, leaving Iran physically incapable of building a nuclear weapon with what was left. In just a few devastating blows, decades of Iranian nuclear development were gone. After 12 brutal days, the war just... On June 23, 2025, U.S. President Donald Trump announced that a ceasefire had been brokered between Iran and Israel, and it took effect the very next day. The 12-day war was over. Both sides, of course, claimed they had won. Israel declared it had successfully taken an existential threat off the table, while Iran projected an image of strength, having proved it was willing to strike both Israeli and American targets. The conflict left hundreds dead in Iran and dozens in Israel, and the entire region was left with deep scars. Today, the ceasefire is holding, but let's be honest, the region is still a tinderbox. The fundamental problems that kicked off this war haven't gone anywhere. So what do you think happens next? Is this the start of a more stable Middle East? Or is it just a pause before the next, even more dangerous fight? Let me know what you're thinking in the comments below. And if you want more deep dives into these complex global events, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell. The June 2025 war was short and savage, with consequences that will ripple for years to come. It ended with the near-total destruction of Iran's nuclear program, but at a heavy human price. While the immediate crisis was stopped by a fragile American-brokered peace, the big questions are still hanging in the air. The deep-seated hatred, the regional power grabs. and the very real potential for a new arms race all cast a long shadow over the future. The 12th Day War might be over, but the struggle for the Middle East is far from finished.